Ladies and gentlemen, we are filming.
Hello everybody, I'm Floyd Dameron, and this is my second scratch build plane. Unlike my last one, this one wasn't really based off of plans I had. I just made it from scratch. Kind of a combination of the P-51 Mustang and a 3D airplane. You know, lots of aileron and elevator for control. I decided at this time I wasn't going to put on a rudder. When I first put the tail on, I thought it might have been too much tail, but I've flown this 3 times and this flies beautifully. And when I tell it to spin, it spins, it climbs, it does everything I want it to. Now, main thing I wanted to talk about with this plane was some of the technique I used in making it, which, if you look at the wings from the side, you'll notice that it is a real airfoil. It's no simulated. And the way I created the airfoil was after bending over the foam board, I put a dowel rod inside there, and then to help it hold its shape, I used my heat gun. You have to be really, really patient when you do this, and keep bending and keep heating it. After I bent that over and got it to hold its shape, then I had to flatten it out so that it wouldn't be too thick. I actually used clothes iron, just gently over it, patiently. Whatever you do, do not get into too much of a hurry. I turn the heat up too much. You'll want to experiment to find out what might be too much for you if you use one of these. I know that they have an iron made for model work that I believe it's made by Monocoat that would also do the job. It's smaller, which is why I like this, because it covered more area. Now, one thing also I've noticed is I use the Dollar Tree foam board on this. Dollar Tree foam board tends to be just a little more sensitive to the heat than the Elmer's foam board. I'll show you an example from my other scratch build that I did build with Elmer's foam board. Notice a nice crisp edge, and it took less effort than when I did the Dollar Tree foam board. I still got a good edge, but you can see that it's not quite as clean. But the way I did that was I would heat it up with the heat gun, and then real quick before it cooled off, grab my welding pliers and crimp it. Just crimp it like so. And sometimes you have to do it a couple of times. These are welding pliers. I picked them up at Harbor Freight for I think about $8. And they're a little loose, but a little sloppy, but they get the job done. Before, when I tried it with my fingers, which is how I did this one here, my fingers got a little burned. I mean, not so badly that I was hurt, a little bit of pain, but my fingertips are fine now. But I definitely prefer using this, easier on the fingers. Now, lastly, well, actually not quite lastly, but next to lastly, is I did the foam board tube technique to do the fuselage. I didn't like it as much because when it came to doing the dovetail, as you'll note, this is a gradual dovetail, I had to cut it here and here to allow it to bend in place like I wanted. And I was wanting to go ahead and dovetail it this way too, but I couldn't figure out how to do it and still have enough surface area holding, so it's only dovetailed in that direction. Still works, still flies good. I wrap this all in packing tape. does a brilliant job. Just have to be a little patient with it. You know, I did for the wings, I laid down a strip, another strip, another strip till I got to the front, then did the same on the bottom, and then one last strip on the leading edge. For the fuselage, I started from the back and worked my way forward, just spiraling my way up until finally the whole thing was covered. And this fuselage is very solid, rock solid. The last thing I want to cover is how I did the motor mount, which this is actually the second time this motor's been mounted. The first time I just did 4 popsicle sticks in a square formation, slightly inset. When I crashed, it caught here. This whole thing got ripped off. So to compensate for that, I took some styrofoam, just thick enough to fit in here tightly, cut it back that far, pushed it in there, cut 4 holes in the popsicle sticks, 1 in each popsicle stick, and made sure to also drill them back into the styrofoam. Then took some Gorilla Glue, put some in each hole, pushed the dowel rods through the popsicle sticks into the styrofoam, and a little bit of glue also there to help it hold. If you look really closely right there, you should be able to just barely see the tip of one of the dowel rods sticking through. And that held up really well. I flew this and landed it, didn't have an issue, although I did make sure to keep the nose up more than I did the second time. So anyway, one takeaway that is the 2" by 2" square tube on this didn't give me enough room, and I needed also to allow for a little more room for the battery. Fortunately, I got the battery right on the center of gravity. Very lucky there, because I have almost no room to maneuver. I had to trim these down because one of them was hitting the battery. So whenever you're designing something like this, take that into consideration before you start if you can. And other than that, that's pretty much all I have to say for this build. I want to thank you for watching. I also want to thank my wife Lida for holding the camera. And if this inspires you or gives you any ideas, or you have any comments or suggestions for me, please let me know. Look forward to hearing from you.